Well, this is a day or so later. I used some of these Gorilla Glue minis and did each corner, all four corners, and it seems to be anchored pretty well. It's not moving at all now. So, and that should be a lot easier to use my little X-Acto knife to cut open if I need to at some point later on. So I'm going to find a couple more precision resistors and do some more testing here. First I think I'm going to put this thing all the way back together. I've got the screen cleaned off and everything internally, and I was going to pull these caps and check them, but yeah, if it's working all right, this isn't something I really care that much about anyways. So I'll be back shortly with a few more precision caps to check and see how they work. Well, I've been playing around with this thing a little bit before I put the case back together, and one thing I noticed you really have to be careful of, especially on the lower ranges. I'm on picofarads times 10. You need to null out the the capacitance of the leads. Now this capacitor I have connected here is a 220 picofarad, and it's most of the ones that I have, I've got about 50 of them, are pretty much right on. And look what happens if you don't null out the capacitance of the lead itself. It's showing clear up, what, 32, 34, about 34 picofarads, 34, 35 picofarads. Now, let that drop down. It's going to be hard for me to do this on camera, but watch how many picofarads of capacitance there is in those meter leads. About the same amount as what we're high on that capacitor. So I'm going to try and null this out with like one hand. I don't know if I could do it or not, with my middle finger and my thumb. Now the problem with this is now it's going to be way off on the other ranges. This thing would have been a little, if you're doing a wide range of capacitance, this thing wouldn't necessarily be an easy unit to use, and look what happens there. It drops way down. Now, I haven't actually done this yet with the picofarad scale. This is the first time. I know I nulled it on all the other scales, and it was very accurate. We'll see what happens here. See if we get the correct reading now. Yeah, we're just about right at the 22, and actually, yeah, we are at 22. So that null makes a huge difference on there. That's why I like to have an instruction sheet with this. There may be other ways around that I don't know of, but I know I'll set this up for one of the other capacitors, and I'll show you how accurate it is on it after I null out the leads correctly. Okay, I've got one here, a capacitor here that is 330 nanofarads. So I'm on a nanofarads times 10, which means the scale will show about 33. And I've nulled out the leads for this scale. And it very slowly climbs up to what would be approximately 32 to 33, 320 to 330. That's about 330 right there. So this thing can be accurate, but it's definitely not convenient to use. I mean, if you only had a couple capacitors to check, I guess it'd be all right, and they're all within the same range. But if you had a ton of them, this thing wouldn't be very quick to use. Let me try a couple more here. I'll be back. Okay, next up I've got this Chinese communist LCR reference, and you can see that the capacitance is 120.29 nanofarads, and it is actually reasonably close to that. I've got other equipment that is way more accurate than this is, and it shows pretty much right on the money. I nulled out to these particular leads, and we'll run this up. Of course, this is nanofarad times 10, so you're way down at the bottom of the scale. So we're at 1, and then about 20, and then the 0.29. It's kind of hard to really get that close on an analog scale, but you can see it's just a tick over 120. So, and I couldn't move up to the next one because I'd be off scale, because this is only a 0 to 100 scale, which is another disadvantage of this. I don't know. I'll try one more and we'll look at it, and that might be it. So this time I chose a 100 nanofarad capacitor, and I'm going to show that it's accurate at both ends of the scale. I've got it in the nanofarad times 10, and I've already nulled out these leads, and we'll run it up. And as you see, we're right at 100, maybe just a hair over. Now I can move this up to, or down to, just nanofarad times 1, and it'll go to full scale this time. So it's reading directly in nanofarads. So it'll go right to 100. Slows down when it gets to the end of it, but if you hold it in long enough, it'll stop right at 100. And maybe just a hair over 100. So this is actually pretty accurate, considering, but it's definitely not a convenient instrument to use. Every time you change your leads, you absolutely have to null it out, which actually you do that anyways with any capacitor tester, but with a digital one it's a little bit easier, because you just hit one button and it calibrates, and then it uses that calibration for any range. But it's reasonably accurate, really slow to use, and supposedly you can go up to, if you use the external meter, you can measure up to 25,000 microfarads with it, which I'd have to think at 25,000 microfarads you'd be holding that capacitance button in, or maybe use the output button, whichever, for a long time to get it to charge up to that. But I don't know, I'm going to put it together. Maybe once I put it together, I'm going to show different sides of it. Maybe I'll go show an ad that I have in one of my electronics magazines from back then, and that might be a wrap then after that. Okay, I've got this thing back together now, so I'll just kind of spin it around here so you can kind of get a look at it. It's a pretty nice shape visually. It's not bad at all, actually. Certainly hasn't been abused. When you Google that name, you cannot find anything other than one other unit that was for sale on eBay that's on WorthPoint, and I'll show you that. I'll pull that up when I go in the house. And whoever sold this one here, the guy who sold this to me, I'm going to say more than likely bought it at an estate sale. He had no idea what it was, and he completely copied that description on WorthPoint to the point where he even made a mistake and called it a schematic Anders Precision instrument, because the other guy, when he listed it, he must have listed it with a schematic or something. I don't know. But when I go in the house, I'll pull it up and I'll show you. So that'll be it out here. I'll go in the house. I'll show you on the PC some little bit more information, and that should be it then. Okay, right here is the ad in the what is it, August 1982 edition of Radio Electronics. $89.95. Detects leakage at half the price, it says. But man, there doesn't seem to be very many of these produced. There's like no information online. Nobody's asked questions about them. I've tried a lot of the different forums, so there isn't much information on them. Now, let's see here. Oh. Okay, right here's the unit that I bought, and yeah, I foolishly didn't look close enough and didn't notice that the needle was gone, but I fixed it. But look at the description on here. Vintage schematic analog capacitance meter. And then I'll hold this back long if anybody has any interest in reading what that says, or even if you could see what that says. Or maybe you can pause it. I'm not going to hold it here real long. But note the similarities of that to, I click on this here, this worth point. This is one that must have been listed on eBay at some other point in time. I don't know when. You have to start a free trial or sign in to see this information. I got no interest in doing that. But notice the exact same title, but this one here has a dial, so it's not the same unit. This one came with a manual, whoever had that, and I was thinking this was the same one whenever I bought it. And you notice where they got the name schematic. Here, you can see it a little bit better there. Schematic capacitance meter. Well, obviously it's saying this is a capacitance meter schematic, but whoever sold this one and the other one both had no idea what they were talking about. And look at this description on this one from who knows when. It's the exact same description as the one that I bought, except I think the last line was taken away. This unit appears to be in good condition, so on and so forth. I think that was eliminated. So basically, the guy sold the one to me. Found it probably in a estate sale or something, and used this whole description with his pictures, and I bought it. I was really disappointed I didn't get this manual. That's something if somebody has a scan of that, let me know. I'd really like to have that. I suppose I'm going to have to probably wrap this up now. I just wanted to show this last little bit, and that's the end of this. One more thing, and I promise this will be it. Here's what you get when you Google this. You get basically that one thing, and then that's it. And now we're talking about golf clubs and the Eric Anders Lang show, where the heck that is, and basically that's it. There is nothing else on any search that I did other than that right there.